All right, welcome to another episode of the Vets in Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Will Curtis, and this week I am joined by not just a veteran, not just a real estate professional, but an actual coach in the real estate space. And we're going to explore what coaching really looks like and the value or maybe no value in all that. Joe, thank you so much for being willing to jump on with us and share your journey and what coaching all entails.
Yeah, Will, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's jump into the first question. What is it that you do? What is it that you did in the service?
So I was in the Marine Corps. I was a 8541 stay platoon surveillance and target acquisition. And for the non-military out there that are watching, possibly that's scout snipers in the Marine Corps. We did a lot of battalion level reconnaissance and those things.
So that's a little different than real estate. How in the world did you
A little
go
bit.
from scout sniper and, doing the reconnaissance side of things? How in the world did you go from that into real estate?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'm going to try to keep it short. Um, as I was going to re-enlist and I was going to make a lat move into EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, and my father had passed away. And being the only child, my mother was back home. Um, I started looking at as I started to look at possibly getting out. We had Lee County, Broward County, Collier County from Florida coming in. They wanted SWAT. They wanted people to be in those positions. So I was looking at that. And then again, my dad passed away. So it was a huge pivot for me to come back home. Honestly, I didn't get into real estate until I got out of the service in 1994. I didn't start real estate until 2007.
Oh, wow. So you had a little bit of a
So
career between
yeah,
service
yeah,
and coming into real estate.
yeah, there was that off balance that I'm sure a lot of veterans feel when they come out, where things just didn't make sense. Things didn't line up. Things just weren't as simple as they were, in the military. So I bounced from owning my own business, doing maintenance for the Board of Education at the schools, different jobs back and forth until we started our home search and saw my wife after about a year and a half with her head in her hands crying because we had a bad experience with a real estate agent. And I looked at my wife and I said, you know what? I'm getting into real estate because I'm never letting that happen to anybody. I don't want to see
Yeah,
anybody go through that.
I can imagine. Obviously it's very personal. It's your spouse, it's you, your family that's kind of going through that. I can see where that was definitely that driving. What's interesting is that you said kind of jumping between here and there, trying to find there, and then suddenly you kind of found a purpose pretty quickly. And then was it just kind of all in? You didn't want somebody else to have that experience. You're just all into real estate after that.
Yeah, it was I was always jumping around with sales just simply because the way that I looked at it, sales made the most money. So it was no matter what I'm going to do something with sales. So I focused on that. And then when this happened, we were pointed in the direction of another real estate agent who ended up helping us. I think the first day of showings, the second house was the one that we bought. And the process was so much different. So I was in a corporate job at that point. He came to me at the corporate job and he said, you know what? You would be amazing in real estate. And I thanked him and said, I appreciate that. I've actually been speaking to my wife. He said, if you need help moving forward, and let's be real, most veterans, that's our biggest challenge is asking for that help or taking that help that's out there. That's a huge pivot. So I said, yeah, I would really appreciate that help if you could help me out with it. And he pointed me in the right direction. And, here we are 18, 19 years later.
So what did that first year or so look like for you? Obviously you've done well. You've been doing it for, almost 2 decades now. What did that first year look like for you?
So it was a lot of unknown stumble. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So you come out of P&P, you come out of the licensing class, you think that, I know how many, X convert into an acre and everything else, and you think you know all of that stuff, and then you're going to go tackle the world, and all of a sudden I'm like, what am I supposed to do to get business? So, you stumble through that a little bit, and then I had a few that told me, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do, and I listened to it, and then I chose the direction that fit me and that I would do. And for me, that was cold calling, and that was calling expireds and doing that stuff. And I used my database of the job that I was in at the moment to start. I always told everybody I was full time evenings and weekends. So it wasn't part-time agent ever for me with that mindset. It was I was going to work it when I could. So I started asking everybody, hey, are you looking to purchase a house? Are you thinking about it? And had a few work referrals. Pulled over, took my first listing because I saw a dumpster in front of a house and people emptying a house out as I was running to the grocery store. I pulled over and just asked, hey, are you cleaning out for spring cleaning or are you looking to sell it? They said they were looking to sell it, and they put me in touch with their mother and set up a listing appointment for later that day. So it was a lot of just looking for what worked for me in the moment and trial and error.
That's what I found is interesting with real estate in general. As we've had this many, I've been in the industry for a minute too. As we talk to everybody, they all find success, but it's different. And I think for veterans, that sometimes the struggle is that we are used to, here's the SOP, step one, step two, Barney style, make it easy. But yet, I think success is finding things that are a little bit different, finding different ways to do things. There's some things that are obviously going to be there, but I despise cold calling. I do it. I despise it. But yet you've been built most of your business off of cold calling, where mine has been completely different. And yet we both found success. I think that's one of the things that veterans miss a lot of times, is that success can be done different ways.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things, so those that don't know, I'm a Tom Ferry coach. So I'm going to quote Tom, a few times here and there. One of the things that Tom said years ago to me that just stuck with me is, as we were talking about the different things that we do in the ecosystem, he said, I don't care where anybody's money comes from as long as it comes. And that hit me because that's the way that I coach. That's the way that I attack my business. I mean, it could be cold calling, could be social media, could be postcards, could be farm, could be whatever you wanted to, as long as you've got an ROI, from it. So, that was, I think the biggest thing is I needed to be in that mindset and in that realm of cold calling because I didn't have a database. I didn't, I came from that story that you hear where my database was horrible. My friends and family looked at me as the little troublemaker back when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and even though I was in a professional place, they still looked at me that way. So I wasn't getting any business from there. I had to go to the people that I don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I think that's one of the frustrations a lot of times new agents or even experienced agents run into, is that family doesn't want to use you. And on the commercial side, I think we see it a little bit different. I don't know if I want to work with family because I don't want Thanksgiving to be awkward later on, right? But I know there's it's very personable. How did you not pick me? How could you not do that? I mean, how did you struggle with kind of, hey, family's not using me? Did you kind of struggle with have that same struggle, or?
So me personally, not so much, simply because with my personality style, I mean, I'm more of a driver type personality style, so I don't have the emotion and those things behind it. It's just mission accomplishment, focus forward, keep moving forward. So it didn't really hit me personally as much as it just opened the question of, hey, just so I know moving forward, what was the reason why you didn't use me? Well, how did that, I looked at it more where I want to know what's going through your mind, so I know automatically if you're never going to use me, or is there's a possibility down the road, did I do something or not do something that I should be? And it's just a quick evaluation and keep moving forward.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's start shifting into a little bit. You're now coaching. I guess, for those that have no idea, coaching, we're obviously not coaching football. You're coaching real estate agents, right? So
Yeah.
what is coaching really become? And we've had a lot of our guests talk about, hey, I've had a coach. My coach does this. My coach helped me with that. But what is, I guess, really a professional coach and a real estate coach?
So just to give you a little background, so I started coaching and training probably it's been about 15 years now. And before I was coaching and speaking and doing training for Tom Ferry, I was speaking and coaching for his father, Mike Ferry. So I've got a lot of coaching background that goes back to, using programs, using coaching, doing that on different levels. I think the biggest thing is the I know in the way that I coach and the way that coaching should always go is there's a level of accountability. Most veterans, I can only speak for, my experience. I know for me coming out, and I'm guessing that most veterans, you're used to that structure. You're used to that schedule that, you know, get up, PT, go do this, be here at this time, be here at this time, do that. And then all of a sudden we get out of the military and what do we have? We have some kind of freedom from that. Everybody talks, even outside the military, talks about getting into real estate because they want freedom. And then the freedom that we see is the freedom from income. So going back to that structure, that strict schedule, that's one of the things that, gets put in place with that accountability. I went into Paris Island with very little internal accountability. There was very, very little. So the good thing for me was there was a high level of external accountability in Marine Corps boot camp that you didn't have a choice. There was all of that. So by the time I got out of that, there was some internal accountability built in. Then we go through the military time period and we have that. We come out, we like to think we keep it, but then we kind of start to lose it a little bit because of everything that in that transition. Then we get into real estate, and real estate, in my opinion, is a whole different beast when it comes to an industry. It literally tests everything that you've been through. So we start to lose even more of that accountability. That's where coaching comes in. That's where asking for that help, to have that accountability, that even that educational part. I always tell everybody that's not in coaching all the time, get a coach. I don't care who it is. I don't care who you're following. Follow somebody. Follow somebody for help, just to give you some idea. And then, like I said earlier, take that information from different people and then make what's best for you. And if that's not enough, that's when you lean more into coaching and get a coach.
That makes sense. I know some of the discussion we hear too is that you have a coach, you have him for years, or some coaches you have for a season. I mean, I guess, what's the thought process behind that?
So I always look at it, and that's a great question because I see it on both ends. Now I've got, I coach roughly about usually about 50 coaching clients that I have in my schedule. So I'm coaching, I think right now about 47. I've got the majority of my schedule have been in my schedule for anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Okay, generally the time period, and don't get me wrong, I have some that transfer to other coaches, and I'm fine with that because if I can't take them further in what they're scaling, what they're building, at that point, they need to go to a coach that can help move them forward. So it's almost, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason. More, it's more along the lines of it's on the individual. Just like coaching. Coaching is not training. Training is where everybody gets the same thing. Coaching is individual, it's specific. And that's where I think that falls into where if you get to that point and you're just not moving forward, yeah, it's time for a pivot. But the goal as a coach is to always keep the client, keep my clients moving forward, keep them scaling in their business.
So, I mean, is it day one? I have no idea, and I can come in and get a coach, or is it something that after I've been in 3 or 4 years? Like, when do you typically see your coaching clients kind of start looking for a coach?
I see a range. I mean, I've had some, so I'll just give you a little bit recent history. I mean, I've had some that have been in the business 20, 25 years and just came into coaching for the first time. I've had some that barely had their license for 20, 25 days. I've had coaching clients assigned to me that literally haven't passed their test yet. And they're scheduling their test, but they asked and wanted to get calls in to establish the structure and everything before they even got the license. I'm always going to say, looking back, what I would say definitely is from my experience, sooner is way better than later. But even if it's later, you know, don't not make the move because, oh, I'm like 20 years in, I'm 5 years in. If you feel you need to make the move, you need to make the move. But if you're brand new and you're just thinking about getting in, get in as quickly as you can.
I'll say that one thing I've appreciate with the coaching that I've had done is that a lot of times that they are from the outside in. So you think you can figure it out, but you're gonna miss those roadblocks. And I can remember one coach in particular. I was kind of dating around trying to figure out who I was going to go with, and what instantly took me to this coach was as he starts talking, he saw through everything that I had a mental block on, just everything I couldn't think or I wouldn't thinking. He broke it down. He just like, here's how you need to structure your business. This is how you're screwing up. And it was such a real conversation where all of a sudden I was like, wow, you're right. And now we're about 3 years into that plan that he put us on, and we're starting to see that shift as well. But that's the other, I think, beautiful thing about coaching is that we've got somebody who's looking at it from the outside who's going to catch the stupid things or even the roadblocks that you have. And I felt dumb. I really did when Coach Walt sat down and he's like, "Here's what you got to do," and I was like, "I'm a professor at a university. I've got an MBA. Like I'm smart. I coach other people. How did I miss this?" But that's what I think was just beautiful about coaching is that they good coach will look at it from the outside
Yeah,
and give you that advice.
yeah, I tell all my coaching clients, I'm in the trenches. I have my own stress. I don't have your stress and your pressure. I'm not in your trenches. So I have clarity.
Right.
You have confusion and those things. And let's be real, most military, I mean, as far as I know, are used to being under pressure. I mean, that's something that, we're trained on, charge towards the chaos, literally, do that. Well, like I said earlier, real estate's a whole different animal. I mean, it's like when I get coaching clients that come in and say, "Coach, I've been a telemarketer for years. I have no problem with these cold calls." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do this, this, and this. Let's track this. Let's get, keep me updated in between the calls. We'll jump on our call next week and see where we are." And then we get on the call and I'm looking and they look pale and they're like, "Coach, I don't know what happened. I couldn't make any calls. I don't know. I don't know what's going on." And I'm like, "Yeah, real estate's not like telemarketing. It's a whole different beast. It's a different industry." So even as a veteran, yeah, we're used to that chaos. We're used to that pressure. We're used to all of that going on. We get in that moment. That stuff sometimes goes out the window. That's where a coach comes in. That's where the clarity comes in where, "Hey, how about we do this? Oh my God, I don't know why I didn't think of that." Well, because I have the clarity. I mean, that's what it comes back to.
So as somebody is walking through and starting to look for a coach, trying to figure out who's the right fit, what are the things they should be looking for?
Well, and they should be looking for number one, if the coach is showing that they understand what they're building and that they're moving them forward. They're going to be able to move them forward. Number one. Number two, there should be I'm not going to say we're going to be best friends and I'm going to be at picnics and barbecues and everything else, but there should be some type of rapport, some type of trust, some type of feeling that, yeah, this is my guy, this is my gal, this is who I'm going to be with, this is my coach. If there's an automatic, now I'll put a little asterisk next to this. If there's an automatic like push away or discomfort, we've got to question that. But if that discomfort is because you're just in a comfort zone and you need to get out of that comfort zone, then that's where the conversation needs to come in and say, "Listen, I don't know if we're a good fit because I'm feeling this," and find out because I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'll be honest, and just say that my personality style isn't great for everybody. But there have been a lot of coaching clients that initially said, "I don't know if, we can work together." And then we decided, let's give it 30 days, 60 days, whatever that time frame is, and see where we are. And they've been in my schedule 3, 4, 5 years because it's not always, right off the bat.
Yeah. I think one of the things that helped me when I was going through the process too was to kind of get a grasp of what I needed coaching on and finding the right coach for that as well. For me, when I was looking for my coach, it was I've got all these opportunities. I've got a million of them out there, but I keep saying yes to all of them, but not saying yes to the right opportunity. And for me, it was how do I build clarity around what that right opportunity? And I know when I was kind of dating coaches for the first time, trying to figure out what I needed, I realized none of them were what I needed. They weren't doing it until I sat down and really defined what I was looking for, what I was trying to improve. Then that conversation became very different. And maybe some of those first three or four coaches that I'd met with would have been great, I just didn't have clarity in and around what I needed and what I was looking for from a coach, other than I was told I just needed a coach.
Well, and sometimes that happens either before we jump on a call or after assignment. Like I have a new coaching client now that was just assigned to me, um, and what I asked him to do was literally brain dump everything that you're looking to build, because he had a lot of documents he talked about. He had a lot of stuff written up. I said, I want you to get all of that together. Take whatever time you need tomorrow, put that in your schedule, get that over to me, and then I'm going to build a game plan off of that. And literally, he got it over to me. I think it was on a Thursday or a Friday. Our next coaching call was the following week. Over the weekend, I probably spent 3 hours or more going through everything that he sent me and literally putting that game plan together, sent it over to him and said, this is what I pulled out of that. This is the focus that I see. Tell me if it works for you, because it doesn't matter if it works for me. I need to know if this is your game plan or we need to change it. And in all honesty, he responded and said, I don't know if this works. I like this. I don't like this. And that's exactly what I wanted, because now it's tailored to him and we made some adjustments. That's what coaching is about. I mean, it's got to be for the individual. So, yeah, dumping all of that stuff and seeing what you're building and where you are, that's an important piece of the puzzle.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I think you kind of just dispelled a little bit is that I know a lot of folks like, I'm going to become a coach, so all I got to do is sit on 30-minute conversations all day and I'll be okay. But yet you're over here taking hours out of your time, not on a call, presumably not really getting paid. I mean, you are, but you're not, right? You know, for putting things together for a client. And I think that's one of the things that's always been, I don't know, I guess with quality coaches, there's definitely ones that are out there that will sit with you for 30 minutes and take your money, but actually doing the work behind the scenes, helping putting things together. And that's always been one of the things that when I've asked coaches, hey, what are you doing? Are you going to be just working on it when we're here? Or are you looking elsewhere? I was surprised at how many are like, oh yeah, you only have me for the 30 minutes a week that we have. If it's anything above that, that's more consulting and I'll help you there. And I was like, whoa, that's not what I was,
Yeah.
that's not what I was looking for.
That's well, so just to give you some background, and that's I'm going to reference this. I'm a coach for Tom. I'm a speaker for Tom. I'm the prospecting boot camp coach for Tom, but I'm also one of the coaches that train the new coaches that come in. So a couple of the things that I say to the new coaches in that training is, number one, the coaching call doesn't end at the 30-minute mark. If you think it's going to end at the end of that coaching call, then you're not coaching and you're not coaching properly. The other thing that I tell them is, if you think that you're going to get rich being a coach, now is the time for you to turn around and go back out the door, because I make far more money in real estate than I do in coaching. I don't coach to profit and make money and get rich off of it. That's not why I do it. If that, I mean, if that was the case, I think everybody would be looking to be a coach and we'd have no real estate agents to coach. But it's that's the way you have to have a passion and want to do it, and that passion has to be for them reaching their goals. And literally that means that, yeah, you're going to have to do some extra time in prep and getting things ready. You're going to have to manage, texts and emails coming in, schedule a possible call if there's, outside of the coaching call, if there's, a need for it like that. There's going to be personal things that come up that you've got to be human about, and understand. That's just the way that it has to be if you're going to be a good coach and keep your clients moving forward. And the reward is, I mean, I have, just to give some proud coach moments. I have two coaching clients that are hitting the $1 million mark in GCI for the first time ever in their career, and one of them had their biggest year ever while I was coaching them at 350,000, and she's going to make 1.3 million this year. 350,000 last year to 1.3 this year.
That's massive.
And the other one's been trying to hit that $1 million mark for years and years, and has been on that plateau. I mean, that every agent that's listening to this knows there's those plateaus. Well, before they got into coaching, they hit that plateau. She couldn't get past it, and now she crushed that plateau, and she hit I think she's at 1.4 for GCI for this year.
That's
And she was
awesome.
just looking to break 1 million for the first time ever. But There's also those great stories where brand new agents, you know, had a goal of 5, and now we closed 15 this year when their
Right.
original goal was 5. So it's all levels. I mean, it's great to get them moving forward, and that's why you become a coach.
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm assuming as you've coached military veterans as well. And as you've coached those military veterans, have you noticed anything that is every time you get a new veteran, you're like, I have to untrain this, this, and this, or these are the roadblocks that veteran's going to have? Have you seen typical struggles that come from the veterans as they start moving into real estate?
I think that's a great question, because I think there's some that it's general challenges that I think we face as they come across, like, you know, SOPs. Veterans, they have to look at the SOPs as, just like in the military, it's the transition and understanding that this is what we did in the military. How does this transition over into my real estate? And we talk about SOPs all the time in real estate, in the ecosystem. And for most veterans, it's easy for them to grasp once they see the how it correlates to what we did with SOPs in the military. But you heard me mention personality style with my personality style earlier. I think a lot of it also has to do, we have to understand as coaches, from my perspective, we've got to coach to the personality style, and even the veterans are going to have their own personality style. So you may have somebody that comes out of the same branch, same time frame, same training, same everything, but has a different personality style. So there may be different coaching in combined with that, because that's sometimes more so what takes somebody away. I mean, you were in the military. I'm sure you saw people that while you were in there, you took something like that, moved on with it, but then you had another that was fighting it. And you're looking like, why is that dude fighting that? I mean, this just doesn't, this is what we do. Why are you having a hard time with it? And usually that's the point, that's their personality style. That's what they bring into the table, not necessarily just personality style, but maybe something they brought in from their childhood or something that way. Those are the things from a coaching standpoint that we have to look at, where it's not a one size fits all, but we have those outlined with, mission accomplishment. Military is focused on mission. I don't care what branch you're in. I don't care what you did. Mission accomplishment. Okay. So that's something that I bring into the coaching with veterans. Hey, let's talk about mission accomplishment. What's our mission for this week? What does it look like to accomplish that mission? And then you can even tie it to that accountability that I mentioned earlier. If we don't accomplish the mission, what are we doing? What's the penalty for that?
I think that's the one thing. And I know for me, I didn't think the accountability was going to be nearly as important as what it was, where you're a hard driver, you're going out there and I don't know, just having somebody else to be accountable to. Some days it's too easy to sit there on TikTok or whatever, and oh, I'm looking for new content ideas, right? You're justifying it that I'm really working, but are you really being productive? And I've known in the same side when you have that productivity or somebody who's there to kind of keep you accountable to be productive, that's a game changer sometimes. That even from coming to the military, I don't have any problems with productivity. But do you? Are you working the smartest? Are you doing it? Goes back to what we talked about before. Somebody from the outside with a clear perspective can see exactly what you are or are not doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's developing that highest and best use all over again. It's looking at how do we structure our day for the highest and best use, and not, block out the noise, block out the stuff that's there, block out the things that you could do. That's why, in my time in the Marine Corps, most of our training that we did happened in places where there was nothing. They did that on purpose to block out the noise. Kahukulave training area in Hawaii, it was in the middle of, out in the middle of nowhere. So it wasn't like, even if you wandered off, you could find something. You just wandered off into more jungle. So, there was no, you block out that noise. You have to take those experiences that you had in the military and bring them over. How did they block out the noise for me when I was in the military? How did I block out the noise? How did I do those things? How did I keep focus to those things? How did I go, 2.5 days with no sleep and still keep that focus, and bring those things in. And that's one of the things that helped me tremendously. Going back, one of the pivots that I did in my real estate was taking that and saying, listen, what would I do if I was back in the Marine Corps? If I had all of this going on around me, what would I do? And the first thing for me was slow everything down. I'm in the chaos, slow it down, get some clarity, look for my avenues. If I go this way and something happens, it doesn't go the way I want. If I go this way, what's going to happen there? Should I go this way? What are my alternates? And looking and being prepared for that. So there was a lot that came in where I was taking a lot of that and bringing it over. That's what we do as coaching. And that's what I do for the military that I coach is, hey, put a pin in that for now. Let's look at that down the road. Let's block that out. Do we really need that right now? What's going to be the ROI? If we didn't finish this yet, should we move on to that? And asking those questions to kind of bring that back.
Yeah. No, and I can see. I mean, I can see all the advantages, and being able to have somebody from the outside, look at all this is such a huge value. And I wish that was one of the things I did earlier on and could do more often. Is have a coach in a lot of those sessions as well. And even we're kind of laughing a little bit. My wife, who's not in real estate whatsoever, she's at that stage too, where she's like, I need a coach to kind of help me figure out some of these things. How can I work through X, Y, and Z? That's just she's in a new level of leadership. This is brand new to her. How does she effectuate? She's been a tactical expert at what she does. Now she's worried about getting everybody on the same page, making everybody happy. So even at that stage, no matter what you're doing, if you're in brokerage, if you're in the management side of things, coaching is absolutely valuable through each of those avenues.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so as we start kind of wrapping everything up, one of the questions we wrap up, almost every time is if you knowing what you know now could go back and do it again or give advice to your kids who are getting ready to make that same transition, what would you have done different or what lesson would you wish that you didn't learn maybe as hard as you did?
So I'm just going to speak for me personally because I don't want anybody watching to think that I'm talking directly to them and that's what, it falls on them or anything. I mean, and you'll understand what I mean when I say this. The first thing I would say is I would have put my ego aside. Put the fact of asking for help and not thinking that it's okay. I mean, based off of what I did in the military, it was a lot of work on your own, work with one other person. um, you know, Coaching sometimes turns into, yeah, you've got one coach, so it's one other person. So that wasn't as bad. But sometimes I see veterans not getting immersed in the ecosystem, like asking other agents in there for help. And that's a huge part of it. So the first thing I would say for myself is I would have put my ego aside and say, listen, if I want to do the best that I can and learn the fastest, get to from point A to point B as quickly as possible, number one, put my ego aside, and not think about anything else or be embarrassed or anything. And then the second thing, I wish I got into coaching sooner. I wish I got into coaching the day that I got my license. That would have taken a 3 to 5 year curve and struggle and everything that I had. And don't get me wrong, I did well in even my first year. I did probably better than most agents around me that I saw. But for me, of course, being military, it wasn't enough, but I looked at it and beat myself up a little bit, but just got better for the next year. But if I could go back, I would have gotten into coaching day one. No doubt about it.
I appreciate that, Coach Joe. And if any of our listeners wanted to connect with you, wanted to find you outside of here, what's the best way for them to connect with you, either social media or what have you?
They could search me social media. They could email me at jbowolick@yourcoach.com. They could text me. They could call me. They could carrier pigeon, smoke signals, however they have to. I'm
Awesome.
available for everybody and anybody, however they need help.
So, well, I appreciate your time on here. And for our listeners, if you found value to this episode, by all means, or if you have questions on it, by all means, give those in the chat. Share that with somebody else that may find value or may be on the fence about coaching and what they may or may not want to do. give that a like, a follow, or a comment on that one. Again, Coach Joe, thank you again so much for your time on this one.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Will.